We're back here with some more Immortals Fenyx Rising, and this is probably the first time you're hearing my voice over the top of this game. I figured when I first started playing this game, I was actually sick. I couldn't really speak without coughing every like 8 seconds. So I figured probably better to have my voice off and just the sound of the game on, especially since it's a nice open world game with a lot of interesting sound design. But here we are at the end of the game. In this video, I'll just be kind of completing some random little side quests and fighting some legendary enemies and doing some stuff. But I wanted to put out this video as kind of an overall review of the game, just since I didn't get to give my opinion of it live on the air while I was actually recording. This is a cool little bit. I really like how this is kind of the equivalent of the Sheikah Tower in Zelda, where you climb up a tall structure and it unlocks a piece of the map. On that note, I kind of wanted to approach this review as mostly a comparison with Breath of the Wild, just because it seems to be directly inspired by Breath of the Wild and copies a lot of elements from it. So I thought that would be the most constructive way to go about giving a review. I guess off the top, I'll give my thoughts in general, and that I really enjoyed this game. This was a blast. I think this was the perfect thing to come between Breath of the Wild 1 and Breath of the Wild 2, which is gonna be coming out in a few months here. And overall, I would recommend it. Even if you've played one, I don't think it takes away from playing the other one. And that brings me to the thesis of what I hope to get across here with this comparison, in that even though they're very similar games with gameplay elements and inspiration and things like that, to me they're a bit fundamentally different. And what I mean is, if someone plays Immortals and they say, you know, I like that better than Breath of the Wild, I wouldn't say that they were wrong to think that. I mean, obviously you're not wrong to enjoy something more, but I don't think that that's like an incorrect thing in terms of looking at a game critically, just because they're trying to accomplish two different things, right? And a lot of that is visible just on the surface of the game, in the sense that Fenyx is like cranked up to 11 kind of all the time. Even something as simple as the color palette. If you look at the color palette of Fenyx versus Breath of the Wild, Fenyx is super saturated, right? All the colors really pop. And Breath of the Wild, it's a little bit more like dull, pastel-y kind of colors. So both of those, well, it's not that one is better than the other, they actually reflect the mood and the environment of the games pretty well, right? Fenyx is like every few minutes you're going to this big combat sequence, whereas Breath of the Wild, it's kind of more, it's more spread out, it's more vast. You're appreciating the expanse more. It's not toned up to 11. I guess overall for the graphics, your mileage might vary, but even though I typically don't play games for hours on end, like if I put up a video, that's probably all I did in that day. Maybe I'll do a couple videos worth of gameplay a day, so like maybe 2 to 3 hours at most. But I think Breath of the Wild is easier to play for longer durations. Like if you want to play that game for 5-6 hours, it just on your eyes it feels easier. Whereas Fenyx just being so much all the time, after a couple hours you're kind of just done. Like that's all you want to do for the day. I think the one big thing is that the 1080p restriction on the Switch was difficult. I might have been better off playing Immortals on another system, which I obviously don't have. But I guess let's go through kind of the good and the bad compared to Breath of the Wild. Let's start positive with the good as we approach Medusa, the mythical Gorgon. The bosses, like the boss design, was really cool here, with all, you know, the bosses in the vaults, and you know, some of these like legendary bosses with the final boss. I thought they were all really well done. They're all distinct, unique. Their attacks all kind of feel cohesive with the design of the character. Like this Medusa just fucking flies around everywhere. That's really cool. Yeah, see, you can see right there all these laser beams coming out. Yeah, boss design really cool. Not a controversial statement to say that one of the weaker parts of Breath of the Wild was the boss design, because it was just Ganon, you know, 4 times over. The only really fun boss in my mind in Breath of the Wild if you don't count like a Lionel as a boss, I guess it counts as kind of an overworld boss. But if you don't count that, then the only boss that was really worth talking about was the one in the DLC, which I won't spoil if you haven't played it. But that boss is fantastic, and I hope that's one of the kind of parts that they address. Even seeing what they did with Hyrule Warriors 2, with the different bosses in that game, I think they're already on the right track. They had a lot more variety in boss design in that game, so I think they're on the right track. Boss design, I thought the dungeons overall, they can kind of hit or miss, but I thought the big dungeons, like the vault of each of the gods, like Aphrodite's vault, Athena's vault, Ares' vault, Hephaestus' vault, I thought those were well done. I thought they were kind of a piece with what the mechanics of the gods were, from the standpoint of like, you go to like Aphrodite's vault and she has all of those like poisonous bramble things in there. It kind of made sense with what you were learning of all the gods. Speaking of bosses, the Wraith, the whole idea of having a Wraith that follows you around every now and then, that was really cool. I was like, because at first I didn't know that you could like you could find their like resting place, their own vault, and permanently defeat them. So I was like, fuck, dude, I gotta every so on I gotta just fight this dude. That kind of sucks. And it's not irritating because you can just, it shows you the Wraith's radius on the map, so you could just run out of the radius, or you could teleport. Or actually, I don't know if you could teleport away while there was a Wraith attack. But that was a really cool mechanic. I liked how Typhon would just randomly, like you're just exploring the world and it's all peaceful and there's like birds chirping, whatever, and then Typhon just like yells over the top of it. I thought that was fantastic. Just reminds you that he's there. And that's kind of what I mean, like about this game being more in your face. Like Typhon's always just like he's reminding you that he's there. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, like you can see the Ganon's there. You can see that the castle is there and all the malice is swirling around it. But for a lot of the game, it's kind of something that exists in the background. You can forget about Ganon for large stretches of the game while you're playing Breath of the Wild. Whereas here, Typhon will literally not let you forget that he exists. Which I suppose is a good time to talk about the combat. The combat in general, I think, is more fun just because the moves are more flashy, right, with the Ares' Wrath and the Athena's Dash, and just being able to do a lot more stuff in midair, I think changes the way that the combat works. The one minus about the combat was that the dodge just felt too cheap. Like it's just too easy to dodge, and it's too easy because the mechanic of dodging itself is too easy. It ends up being too easy to execute a perfect dodge, whereas in Breath of the Wild, like you kind of have to be ready to do the little flippy motion thing. Like you can't be trying to attack and then last minute change your mind and then go into a dodge, because you unless you're really good, you probably just don't have the reflexes to pull that off. Whereas here, you can be mid attack or mid like 10 attacks in a row and you can dodge. And in this game, you can dodge 5 times consecutively, so you can just spam the dodge button, and you're gonna get a perfect dodge. And it kind of feels more like Bayonetta in that sense. Whereas if you just keep spamming the dodge button, you'll just keep going into witch time, and you'll kind of break the game, which is not ideal for a combat system that I think is otherwise pretty fleshed out. One of the really cool things is the ability to use powers in combat. Like in Breath of the Wild, your Sheikah Slate powers don't come in that handy. Like you're never really using the bomb. I guess you could use the bomb against like bokoblins, or you can use the bomb to like blow up barrels. But that's again, like against anything besides a bokoblin, you're probably not using a bomb. Like any enemy that you're actually fighting for more than like 8 seconds, the bomb's not coming super handy. Any of the overworld bosses and stuff. You're obviously not using Magnesis. You're not using Cryonis and Stasis. I guess you can, but again, against bigger enemies, Stasis barely does anything. It doesn't really work at all. Whereas here, you can use your ability to lift things, to like lift the rocks and then throw them at people, or for the smaller enemies, you can pull them towards you. I thought that made it a lot of fun, especially against the flying enemies, where you can just pull them towards you. And I'm getting my ass kicked by this the Cyclops here. yeah, using powers in combat I think is fantastic. On that note, the skill tree, I usually hate skill trees just because I think they tend to be too complex. Like the classic example just being like Skyrim, it's like, all right, we have like 18 skill trees and they each have like 20 different skills, and it's already hard enough to like stock up enough, level points or whatever it is, in order to even get those rewards in the first place. But I thought here, not only are the resources, the coins of Charon, they're fairly easy to get if you're willing to get them, to put in the time to defeat the puzzles. But I thought like like there's not that many things to get, and I guess none of them are really game breaking. Like there's the ones that like let you dash through the lasers, and there's the phosphorus clone that you can basically use to like bypass a number of puzzles, which is not what you want. So I guess there are some cheap ones in there. The thing with skill trees that kind of annoys me is that if you want to break the game with them, you can, just because you can go around like specifically looking for coins of Charon, and just upgrade your skills like very, very quickly, and then all of a sudden you're kind of just too powerful for the world. So that's kind of the reason I don't like them, besides them being complex. But I thought here they were generally enjoyable. Just like the ability to like unlock a hammer and unlock the Ares Wrath, and just unlock different things, I thought was pretty cool. In addition to the combos, like the sword combos and the axe combos and this and that. I think that's it about the combat. I wouldn't say that the combat it's definitely more fleshed out than Breath of the Wild. Whether it's better, I think Breath of the Wild is trying to do something different with the combat, because the whole point of Breath of the Wild is like you're not necessarily supposed to engage in combat with everything you see, and if the combat is like too, like if there's too much going on in the combat to the point where like you can do 10 different things, then it kind of incentivizes you to engage in combat more. Whereas Breath of the Wild, you're supposed to kind of explore. You're supposed to just crawl around and do things like that, like scour for resources and scavenge and that kind of thing. What else? Flying was great. And it looks like in Breath of the Wild 2, they're adding kind of a Z dimension to the game overall. So, of course, you could fly using your paraglider, but that's kind of a point A to point B type of thing. Whereas in Immortals, like flying is, it's you just fly when you can. You're flying as a part of combat. You're flying to get around. You're flying because it's fun. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, it's like, I just want to jump off this thing and not take a craplet fall damage. The commentary. I think in the wrong hands, just having a constant fucking thing talking over the game can make it go wrong real quick. But here I thought it was a really nice balance. I thought the comedy and the jokes were all pretty good. I thought they came in quite a lot, more than you'd expect. But even then, it didn't feel like, all right, like, shut the fuck up, guys. Like it never felt like that. And in the map, right? The map is divided into the 5 regions for the the four gods, and then the Typhon region, as you can see on the map here. Even though they're colored differently. They're like skinned differently. That part is whatever, but I did enjoy overall like the symbols and the iconography of each god. Whereas like when you're in the Forge Lands, it kind of feels like you're in an industrial kind of area based on the way these like sculptures or these buildings and such are all put together. So that's all the stuff I really enjoyed about the game. Stuff I thought could have been different or could have been improved. Or not even could have been improved, but just things I noticed, especially in context of Breath of the Wild, was the map size. The map size here is obviously a lot smaller than Breath of the Wild, so you're constantly encountering things, whereas Breath of the Wild was like a very, very empty open world because you had to like traverse a lot to find something, which I think worked very, very well for that game. Ordinarily, you'd be like, well, why'd you build this beautiful world and then put nothing in it? But with the whole exploration motif of that game, I think it works quite nicely because now, it's when you come across something, it feels like an accomplishment. It feels like you're like, oh shit, like I did, I was able to actually, get through this big land and kind of get to somewhere where I wanted to go. And even though it was largely big and empty, Breath of the Wild having towns and having little pockets of like people, I thought really helped because it reminded you that there's actually like life in this region. Like this is what you're fighting to save. Whereas in the Golden Isle, like there's literally no NPCs, right? It's only enemies. There's no towns. There's no other humans. You're only interacting with gods, and I guess that's part of the plot because all of the humans get turned to stone at the very beginning. So I guess there's a canonical reason for that. But at the same time, the fact that like you don't really like, interact with any people, and they try to supplement that with having the commentary of Prometheus and Zeus. So it's not like that aspect is ignored entirely, but it does feel kind of lonely, even though you have them in your ear for a good amount. Just going a large portion of the game and just there's no towns, there's no people, there's no like environments, there's no settlements. It does, yeah, it just feels lonely, I guess is the best way I can put it. And it when you're thinking about like why am I playing this game from a narrative standpoint, like why am I trying to save this world, in Hyrule, like you meet the people and you meet the different races and you meet the Rito and the Zora and all the Gorons and everybody and the Gerudo, and you're like, oh, this is why. And whereas here it's like, well, everyone's already turned to stone. Like I don't know, it just you don't feel like the world itself is alive just because the world is filled with monsters. On the note of monsters, enemies not dropping anything, except for I guess they dropped the little gems that you use to upgrade your shit. I guess I don't feel strongly about this, but I mean this is a lot more simplistic game in terms of the resources, right? Like you have like even the weapons. They all have different effects, but you don't really notice them on the surface as much. They're all kind of just passive, like, oh, this increases your damage in this way and whatever else. And to that effect, like same thing with the armor, right? There's not as much variety, right? You just get a bunch of like different skins of the same armor. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, they have so many like distinct. Oh, like this armor does this thing, and this armor like improves your like sneaking ability, and like it makes you more quieter when you walk around, and that was kind of missing for this game. And in line with that, this game just didn't have resources besides the gemstones, and that's why I guess like enemies didn't like drop shit. There's no like Keith's wings and Keith's eyes and Lizalfo's tail. Like there's none of that shit, right? You don't like they just don't drop stuff. Which again, I guess is okay. It's just something I noticed. One big thing that is very, very glaring is that they did not make the environment something that you can interact with. Like you can't like light the ground, like the grass doesn't light on fire. There's no weather. And as much as I and I'm sure everyone else hates rain in Breath of the Wild because it means you can't climb, which is something I have no idea how they didn't patch that out like within a week of releasing it, or even during just like playtesting. I don't know how that didn't get patched out. But not having weather, besides the Typhon storms every now and then, it's just something else you notice when you're used to like being able to, like if you have an elemental weapon and you like light the ground on fire and it creates an updraft and then you can ride the updraft. It's just all like really innovative ways that you interact with the environment that I thought were missing from from this game. I guess elemental weapons in their entirety were missing from this game, so that was kind of disappointing. The weapons all looked really cool, all the different skins for the weapons, and the ability to kind of change your appearance is fun. Probably gonna change my appearance pretty often from here on out. Um, what else? Oh, potions. I guess again, this goes in line with not having a lot of ingredients, but there's only 4 kinds of potions, and really you're only using the health potion. You know, I guess if you're really having trouble with the combat, you can use like the little attack boosty potion, or the I think the one of the I don't even know what they did, right? Like one of them was like a defense boosty potion. One of them, I guess, refills your stamina instantly. I guess you can use those, but because of all the upgrades, you get powered up so quickly that you just end up not needing to use anything except for health potions every now and then. And even after a while, you're just like, yeah, like kind of don't need the health potion. I'm good. um, yeah, and I guess the last thing is the puzzles. It's a bit unfair to compare puzzles in any game to a Zelda game, because the Zelda franchise is it's a lot of things. It's like an action adventure, it's an exploration, it's all these different things. But I think primarily, if you had to describe Zelda, I think you describe it as a puzzle franchise, right? It's built around these dungeons that are puzzles, and just puzzles that exist in the overworld, where you discover puzzles that that aren't even there at first sight, and yes, it's unfair to compare, but I thought the puzzles in general were overall not super great. Like the constellation challenges were a perfect example. Like, oh, we're basically doing the same puzzle over and over and over. Whereas, okay, find these 5 fucking balls that are lying around this area and put them in the stupid thing. And obviously with Breath of the Wild, the puzzles, after a while, it gets stale. But, I mean, when you have 120 of anything, it's going to get stale, right? With 120 shrines, like, yeah, it got stale. I don't know how many shrines were in this game, or vaults, I guess, in Immortals. I'm going to guess that it was less than 120. It was probably closer to, like, 70, 80 vaults in total. Some of them had cool mechanics, but I thought overall it was more miss than hit. I think the ones that were like 3-star difficulties or 3 skull difficulties, those ones had some pretty innovative puzzles. After a while, I'm like, well, just why would you even have like the level 1 or level 2 difficulties? Like they're just shittier versions of the level 3 puzzles. Like once you go through the tutorial levels and you explain how all the powers and stuff work, then why do you even need to have those? I guess. I'm looking it up now. I think looks like there were 62 vaults of Tartaros, and then 4 Wraith layers. And I think the 62 includes the 4 big dungeons, right? Like the vaults of the gods. So like 58, I guess, for all intents and purposes. So so about half of the total like number of puzzles that Breath of the Wild did. And I thought, even though the Korok seed thing in Breath of the Wild, it's kind of annoying that they don't explain to you that, hey, there's shit around the map that you should pay attention to. Like anytime something seems out of place, like see if there's a puzzle hidden there. I just appreciated, in retrospect, I appreciated how those things were so subtle. Like, it's not even that if you're looking for them, you'll find them, although of course that is true to a certain extent. Like, even if you're looking for some of the Korok seed puzzles sometimes, like, you're not going to come across them very easily. You just have to kind of be walking around and just like, you're like, oh shit, like, let me look at that. Like, that seems weird. It kind of just comes to you. It feels more naturally baked into the environment. Whereas in the Golden Isle, there's just like literally puzzles like just plopped onto the map. I thought the harp challenges, the lyre challenges, were super annoying. I'll be honest. I looked up the answers to those because I was like, I'm not gonna fucking try to find all the mini lyres. don't know how you say that word. Yeah, we talked about the constellation challenges. The fresco ones they're okay, I guess. The navigation ones are fun because you're just literally racing from point A to point B, and that big music comes in. The arrow challenges, I think were pretty cool. I guess you call them the Odysseus challenges. I thought the Apollo's arrow overall was definitely a cool invention. Um, it it wasn't so cheap that like you could use it in battle super frequently, but it was kind of a way that like, all right, if you're not trying to, you know, like take the time to focus your arrow, you can shoot a super slow mo arrow. I thought that was fun. Um, yeah. Oh, having chests spread around, like some chests only appear at night. Um, that's one of those things where it's like, I guess, but like, but why? It's one of those things like that you say and like, oh, like that seems cool. Like some chests are only gonna appear at night, but then it's like, all right, well, but why is that the case? Like, why? What game design decision led you to actually go ahead and do that? Horses, having the different types of horses, definitely very cool. Really enjoy that aspect of it. Yeah, I think those are all my thoughts. Let's go around here and look at all of our upgrades. These are upgrades on the potions. I'm not gonna try to find all these all these different resources to try and upgrade all these. Like I said, I'm a completionist to an extent. I'll complete some things, but some other things I'm like, do we really have to complete all that shit? I did enjoy these animations, for what it's worth. Even though, yeah, like I said, potions were not my thing. Even the ability to upgrade potions, like using potions, is already kind of a hack, but I don't know. Why would we need to upgrade them? Let's look at our tasks here. Yeah, we still have a few tasks to complete on the board. But I think I'll definitely go through and complete the heroic tasks. We'll get through all those. That might involve us having to find a bunch of chests, which will probably be annoying, but we'll for sure get through those. Coins of Charon, I think we've upgraded everything, 34 out of 34 and 25 out of 25, and then we've also upgraded them past that as well. I find it interesting that they enable that, like they put enough coins of Charon into the game to like so that you have more than you need. I guess that's good. So it's not like you have to get every single puzzle to unlock all of the abilities. So we have our powers that are boosted up pretty far, which again, you're already breaking the game by using some of these powers, so that felt kind of unnecessary to enable such a functionality, although I understand why you wouldn't want any of those coins to go to waste. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Immortals Fenyx Rising. That's almost a half an hour there. So I'll say, yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I think it's just a different game than Breath of the Wild, and I would highly recommend anyone to play it. And we'll pick it up. We'll do all the vaults, and we'll do the DLCs.